and I'm going to begin by the usual narrative. Good evening. It is Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. We'll begin by saying that you can listen to this meeting via telephone. The United States toll-free number is 1-877-309-2073. The access code is 611-426-261. Please note that you will be interact during public input using the online service. However, you'll only be able to listen to the meeting via telephone. If you have any issues attending this meeting electronically, please use the aforementioned instructions, and please call 603-569-5903. And with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we do have a quorum, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Gordon?
Yeah.
Have them turn off their mics, either Penny or can't think of his name.
Garrett?
Thank you. Just have them put their mics on mute, and if they want to talk, then they can turn it on. We're picking up background noise in there.
Did you hear that, Penny and Gary?
No, I did not understand that.
Yeah, Penny, you gotta put your phone on mute.
Okay. All right.
If you want to speak, just press the mute button and jump in, but if you don't keep your phone on mute, the background noise around your phone is always being transmitted, so it's creating a problem for the audio.
Okay, not a problem.
Thank you for our techno lesson for the evening. Okay, moving on then, public input. And forthcoming with approval of the December 16th, 2020 minutes.
I have a couple of corrections.
Sure, go ahead.
Under the section for legal expenses, 4153, in the third line, the word municipality probably should say NHMA, or spelled out it would be the New Hampshire Municipality Association.
Could you,
Is that,
How do you
that
want
clear,
that?
or is that?
how do you want that to read?
Well, I think we just replace the word municipality with the capital letters NHMA.
Okay.
And then also, if I could just get my name spelled correctly on the next page, first line.
And can you spell it for us?
That's all I have.
Just to add an H.
CHEA
NHMA.
MH.
Okay.
Is it spelled right, Gary, on the first page? Top?
That's all right, yeah. Yeah, it was just in that one section.
All right.
That's all I have.
Anything else?
I move that we accept the minutes as corrected.
Move, do we have a second?
I'll second them.
Seconded by Penny. Okay, Barry?
Aye.
Chip?
Aye.
Gary?
Yes.
Penny?
Aye.
Ellen?
Yes.
Bob?
Yeah,
Chair votes aye. I don't have anything for comments this evening, so we're moving on to the current year expenditures. Which always makes for some interesting reading.
Well, we did, what's the word I'm looking for? We held some money over to next year.
Encumbered.
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 I'm sorry. So we'll have that list for you, but it's certainly not $400,000.
I'm sorry, how much did you encumber?
I'm gonna have to have that list for you at the next meeting, but it's not $401,000. I think it's closer to $100,000.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it shows, doesn't it, somewhere where you would,
Well, in one of the sections, it did say how much they encumbered, but
Did it?
yeah,
Gentlemen, know that.
I think it was,
it's in the other buildings.
yeah, it was in the, budget write-up.
That was for last year.
I'm sorry?
That was for last year.
Was there any,
I think there is some notation where things were, when we get to other buildings, we'll see a note.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to congratulate this, on paper, congratulate the selectmen on their money management. In a very, very difficult year to see on any particular budget item to be at most minimally overspent and many, many way underspent, excuse me.
yeah,
I think you did an excellent job.
I think overall we've underspent by close to 8% when we finally figure it out.
Hmm.
So what I would like is if my colleague, Ms. Hartshorn, would calculate her differences from the amount of money budgeted rather than the amount of money spent. But so I got that argument out of the way early on. I just want you to know that.
That's just fine. You know, on the preliminary one that I printed up, I did make a note of that.
Thank you.
But,
Well, you came in almost 10 points under. And that's pretty good, considering everything else going on. I mean, granted, there were some things that were going to be pretty self-evident that you were not going to spend, things like Parks and Rec and that sort of thing, because it just wasn't going to happen. But even on the everyday line items, I think you did a pretty good job.
Yeah, and I think, kudos to the highway department for finally coming in at budget. They're all under. Not sure, all of his money hasn't been brought in yet, but he's still gonna be a little bit under budget as opposed to his historical bent to be over budget.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the warrant article portion of the expenses, we did carry over whatever we could to continue the processes that were planned and didn't get accomplished. Part of, and I looked at the financial administration. Yeah, there's no notes on the financial administration. Oh, so it goes without saying. So that, well, I'll wait until we get to that budget, but then I'll explain it.
Okay. Any other questions on expenditures?
No,
Moving on to even more fun, which is revenue.
And revenue was up by $60,000.
Looking at 318902, which is the betterment tax,
Mm-hmm.
Any idea what happened there?
Expired.
Oh, it expired.
That'll do every time.
Yeah. We'll have another one that'll start up as soon as we've established what the amount is on Willow Road.
Okay.
And
I think we ought to thank everybody for buying new cars in the midst of the pandemic. That was pretty interesting. Motor vehicle permit fees.
And rooms and meals stay at 122,000. I'm not confident that it's gonna remain that high for 2021,
I don't see how we could.
so that number will change.
Can I ask for just a little explanation of line item 3401 for the heading medical rescue? I believe the INS means insurance claims. Just, what is that exactly?
We have set up a billing company along with our chief, our fire chief, to collect for ambulance missions, if you will. And so there's
Yeah, okay.
so we're billing for the ambulance service that we provide, not unlike what Stewart's does for the patients that they service.
Okay, I got it. It's our ambulance, okay.
And the reason we put that in was to further justify the expense of actually buying an ambulance as opposed to just hiring an ambulance service. So we're offsetting the cost of that purchase to a certain degree. It's not by much, but by some.
Well, yeah, no, it's, I understand. Okay, thank you.
So there's no income from the library, does that come in later?
No, that's purely a paper transfer. What we have to do every year is that we have to account that when we're doing the budget, we anticipate that X amount of dollars are gonna be coming into the library through donations and that sort of thing.
Right?
So it has to show on the revenue side, even though it's not really true revenue. Okay, it's one of those foolish things that every single year, you know, people, not necessarily you, but somebody in a public hearing will say, how come the library isn't paying their bills? It's just an accounting thing. It drives me crazy because we have to do it that way, but that's just the way it is.
Got it.
These are money, those dollars that are in the library budget, but they're not really revenue. But then again, they're also not expenditures in part of the town either, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions on revenue? Very well then, let's moving on to financial administration, 4150. And I have a question, and it says it's included in the revenue. Talk to me about Log Me In, which is 4150.32. 680, which went from budget of 4,000, now it's budgeted at 18,770. Is that the service that we're using here?
It is. And I'm sorry I can't find the line. Where is it?
Is that the
It's under community maintenance.
4150-32680?
Yes, community maintenance and IT support.
Right.
So I see that you're using Solar Winds, aren't they the ones that were hacked?
Yeah.
Where we had,
Well, we're vitally concerned about the national security implications of using SolarWinds here. But it is the most efficacious and least expensive method of getting to the cloud with our information. And that topic did come up. And there isn't an alternative that comes anywhere near what our budget needs to be. So we are sort of balancing the loss of information to the Soviet, to the Russians, to the expense of actually putting it out there.
So LogMeIn is the service that we're using for all the teleconferencing, for all the selectmen's meeting, our meetings, anybody else, any other public meeting?
Right. In addition to Joe filming them, because a lot of folks are not, I'm gonna say,
They're not getting online.
yeah, they're not getting online as easily. So we're gonna stay with YouTube with Joe, as well as LogMeIn.
So is this service the one that we're talking about, Joe and I was casually talking about before the meeting started? This is the one we have with the camera mounted up on the wall up there?
Right,
Okay.
right.
So people were not able, so then we are not able to stream our meetings live because this is not functioning correctly, or?
It's
I'm
not,
just confused as to what's.
it's not being operated right now. A person should be sitting there with a laptop that plugged in. They sign onto the go-to meeting. They are the main person and they control everything from there. Once that happens, anybody out in the world can come in, go to the website, look at it, and watch what's going on. But that's not what's happening right now.
Right. Which is not to say it isn't gonna happen during 2021. So it is a budget item.
Okay, that's fine.
Our interest is to not only get selectmen's meeting to as many people as possible, but Board of Adjustment meetings, planning board meetings, budget meetings,
Mhm.
all of these, Conservation Commission.
So who is going to be trained to be the person with the,
Well, I think ultimately it's gonna be the secretary of the,
And this is probably not the time to discuss. I do want to know what the figures were for the go-to meeting at the end of the year or the present. I know what I'm paid already. Is my figures, what I'm paid combined in with this major price, did you say $18,000? Or is that
No.
separate?
videotaping is a separate line item. It's
Yeah.
415023.
Is that, I'm sorry?
Your line item, the videotaping line item is a separate line item.
Yes. But what the go-to meeting is costing how much?
Well, that total,
For the year?
where are we? The total line item is 20,770. But that's all of our computer maintenance and IT. So the 18,000 of that is computer maintenance and IT. So I think it's a couple of $1,000s for, or somewhere around there. For
Not to be tagged in with everybody else. It seems like that'll be split down, find out who's getting what, where, and how.
Right.
My opinion, sorry.
And the other part of it is the backup. So we're gonna try, or we're going to get away from, for want of a better term, take backup systems, where we're backing up in-house, taking it off-site. So we're gonna go to a cloud backup system, which is more efficient, less risky, and happens more regularly, although our staff's pretty good. It's actually a more modern way of doing things, is to continually back up into the cloud as opposed to trying to remember to take the tape home.
so why did the selectmen add $2,000 over what the department had requested?
That was, the 18,770 is just the contract for the IT company that we hired.
Right.
But we wanted to add in the LogMeIn and that portion of it, so that's.
Oh, so the 2,000 is the LogMeIn?
Yeah.
So on these figures on this stuff here, Joe's videotape has gone from $7,000 5 years ago to $8,400.
Mhm.
And the, where did I see that? The computer IT is going down here, if you look at computer IT,
It's from 300.
$367 to $20,000.
18,700.
And most of that is, the big jump is this year, just because of what we've been forced to do this year, so the only thing
And there's two portions of that. What's not reflected in the historical budget is the updated equipment that needs to happen, which hasn't happened for the last 6 or 7 years. So we've got some purchases that have to go in. For instance, we purchased a server, although we took money out of this year's budget to purchase that server, but we need to purchase some equipment for the fire department, for the town office, for different areas. Plus, we needed to engage an IT specialist, so we're actually running our system more efficiently.
you basically have no choice but to do that.
You really don't if you're gonna have a computerized system. I mean, if you're gonna work in a world that's,
Now, does anybody know that once this pandemic is all gone and it's back to normal, we're still gonna have that same system, we're gonna need it then? Or is that gonna be something that comes and goes?
yeah, no, this is not pandemic related. This is, everything has become computerized. We're slowly coming up to speed on it. And part of the issue as far as the IT specialist is concerned is that number was sort of broken up among a bunch of budgets. And what we've done is we've brought it onto the computer line here. So that same technician or company of technicians will service the fire department, the police department, the transfer station if they need something, the town offices. I think the library as well, we utilize them. So although it looks like a big jump in that line, it's actually just coalescing into that line. Yeah, if you look at, I mean, it's the one budget that we struggled with a bit because it has jumped up by $22,000, but that's the bulk of it, if you will. I mean, there's some salary increases that are minimal, but the bulk of the increase is right there on the computer maintenance and IT support.
So you use Lake Region Computer for your maintenance people?
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Very confident company.
Yeah, we interviewed 5 different companies, got 5 different bids that ranged from, I think, 17,100 to 36 or 37,000. I mean, it was a real big spread. And then it really came down to recommendations, and we made a lot of phone calls to who's using who, and feel pretty comfortable with the selection.
Well, speaking as a consumer, who's dropped a fair amount of money in that place over the years,
Mhm.
incredibly competent people. So
Yeah.
congratulations, good choice.
Yeah, they've made some great recommendations so far. They're not tagging us on equipment purchases with their commission for
Mhm.
recommending, and there's no hidden costs involved, which is pretty straightforward.
Very good.
Jeff, how retroactive will our information and materials be placed on the cloud, or will it just start on some day and everything else that's already on DVDs just stays there? How does that work?
Well, there's a certain amount of retroactivity that happens just because it's like this budget. The budget includes references to 2017 and 2018. So there's a certain amount of the information that's going to go uphill into the cloud. We haven't, although we just hired those folks and they started January 1st. So we haven't had our next sit-down meeting with them. If there's a concern or there's a desire to have more historical documents included in our storage in the cloud, then you should bring that forward. We'll certainly bring forward what our concerns are, but unlike some in government, we don't know everything. So if there's something that you feel would be important to store off-site, then certainly let us know.
Okay.
Thanks.
I propose that we accept budget 4150 administration, financial administration in the amount of $153,803.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any further discussion on this? Forthcoming. Barry? Chip?
Aye.
Gary?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. Moving then on to government buildings.
Can you reference number 4194?
Got a couple questions on this one. What are we doing as far as fire station improvements? 419403.
We have our fire chief here.
A lot of that.
Did you not do a detail? Gordon?
Well, I have a detail, but it's, there's like 18 pages of detail. I'd just like to hear, as long as Adam is here, you tell us what's going on.
So you
We
want
just
to-
want to make sure that
You don't have to
Adam knows
condense
that we
it.
needed him to be here.
It was 14, which one?
Was 419403-730 on the first page. Fire station improvements.
So Central Station Fire Improvements.
Well, this says fire station, doesn't
It's
say.
seal coating, furnace replacement,
Okay, that's all
and
about
interior
it. Okay,
painting.
so it wasn't have to do with the central fire.
Yeah, there's one that has to do with Central Station, and there's one that has to do with the two stations.
Okay, I figured out what the other ones were. It was the central, I'm sorry, the central fire. What are we doing there?
So as far as Central Station, we were scheduled to do seal coating this year and crack filling with the line striping. That did not happen. We were able to do the seal coating, but because there was so much money spent on repairing furnaces and some things that went wrong as far as the station, I have a breakdown that I can go through with you as far as some of the different stuff that occurred, that we put off the seal coating at all of the stations. So that was put back in the budget. The only thing that I didn't know what would happen is if some of the crack filling would get torn up from the wintertime where it didn't get sealed. So the crack filling part of it I left in the 2021 budget in case some of it had to be redone.
But this was stuff that you had planned on having done this year?
Correct. And we ended up using the money for other issues.
Had the selectmen considered, because it was in this year's budget, had the selectmen consider encumbering that as well?
I don't know.
No, because the problem is, in order to encumber, we have to have a contract and an invoice, if you will.
Okay.
So, yeah. If you look up the stream a little bit at the town office improvements, we've got figures on all those from companies that are gonna do the work. We encumbered $28,000 there.
I mean, I do have estimates for the different stuff as far as that needs to be done. So like the boiler flue replacement for the central station, which was $2,295. That is something that we found that needed to, or needs to take place, as some of the piping is deteriorating. And the state found that as, things have changed as far as the type of PVC piping that is used for furnaces has changed now. Just because of that stuff has been heating up, it turns yellow and starts getting fairly brittle. And the whole setup there, we also found that one furnace appears to be sucking in the exhaust from the other due to the way the wind is and stuff there in the front. And you can see that from how one is really dirty and the other is staying fairly clean. The other thing for Central Station is there's 2 locks that are electronic locks on the door. One is on the hazmat door in the back of the station, the other is on the gear room door. They're $500 a piece. Those particular locks need to be replaced. They have been replaced under warranty in the past, but now that the building is 7 years old, it's up to us to do as far as replacement ones. They're starting to intermittently fail as far as when you punch your key code in, the will not unlock. So that is,
They're $500 a piece?
yes.
So wouldn't that be $1,000 per station?
No, they're $500 a piece. There's 2 of them. There's one for the gear room and one for the hazmat.
This is just at the central station, so not.
This is just
Oh,
Central
just the
Station.
Thank you.
The Central Station at 8:45. The rest of this, as you notice, was pretty much flat budgeted.
Mhm.
But the fire department has put this in for 2 weeks. And we did break out outside maintenance in the transfer station for the mowing.
Are we putting in a sprinkler system at the townhouse?
I don't know.
It says ground sprinkler, $4,000.
Where are you?
On the first page, 419401.
That's the lawn sprinkler, isn't it?
Oh, ground sprinkler, right. So we're putting the sprinkler system in.
What's been done in the past, keeping that lawn so much green.
Rain, I think. You know,
Last summer.
I think Lloyd said something about the beach with the garden.
What's that?
Lloyd
The
just
garden
said-
has a sprinkler system. It's connected to the town pipe house.
Is,
I don't know why I don't remember this, Lloyd. Are we sprinkling the town garden now? That's the plan?
Always have been.
Okay.
oh,
Well, there's water to the town, right? You're not running a sprinkler system out there, right?
Well, I know there's water out there, but it appears that we're gonna sprinkle it. Well, I missed that day, and I haven't missed a meeting yet in 4 years. So I don't know.
You were in the bathroom.
I was in the bathroom. Okay.
I'm sorry. I could be wrong.
Short money for a good cause.
Yeah, if we're gonna sprinkle that whole section.
I'm digging up my pond.
And the other line item that changed was transfer station outside maintenance, as I was saying, which is gonna include the mowing of the Gould property, Dearborn property, Lake Road, and trash pickup. And how it ended up in transfer station, what it did.
Why,
Because-
why is it called transfer station outside maintenance if it's for,
Because
Oh,
the
dear
vast
God.
majority of that 3,600 is to mow the former landfill,
oh,
that big area. They mow it twice a year.
Yeah, we'll take long, we'll do it, that's for sure.
I actually mowed it once.
I move that we accept the budget for 4194 general government buildings in the amount of $138,500.
Moved, we
I'll
have,
second that.
been seconded by Penny. Is there further discussion on this one?
You know, I go down to this list and all this stuff, you know, I see it, find it mind-boggling. that There's so many different things taken out. And they're not, like all the fire department stuff is not in one spot. Everything is just kind of hodgepodge, and like, I go down and I switching pages, well, what's this one, where's this one, where's that one go? And it would seem to me as though it would make a lot more sense if some of it could be coagulated together to give you a more basic figure of the maintenance of the heat, of the electric, of these departments, instead of, I mean, I go through this thing, geez, I get dizzy going back and forth and up and down, and trying to figure out. and-
You know, to a certain extent, I have to agree with you, because this is the third time that Adam's been here for three different things. Fire
Right.
department, emergency management, and now other buildings. I guess it would be nice to be able to say, okay, this is what our fire department is going to cost us. Soup to nuts. This is what the police department is going to cost us. Soup to nuts. But I don't know how we're going to be able to accommodate that within the budgetary rules of the state of New Hampshire.
Well, we can, I mean, the discussion happened not so long ago, I mean, we're all old enough to remember, where all of these things were combined into the buildings budget.
It's coming full circle.
Yeah, it has come full circle, because, I mean, I'm kind of in agreement with Barry, that it's easier to figure out what your department costs and know all the expenses, including insurance and everything else that goes along with having a fire department or a police department or
Sure.
a transfer station.
Well, it's right
But for
there.
whatever reason, but for whatever reason, 10 years ago, whenever it happened, this structure happened. Not to say that we can't change it, it just would take a bit of an effort to change it. And then we take.
Would it be possible to ask the departments to create an Excel spreadsheet that they could give to us at the next year's budget? Even though we're not changing where they're located, they could bring all those line items together so we as a committee could know that information.
And that might be the perfect solution. Because I think if we were to change the budget structure as it stands, then the newly elected budget committee members are going to be pretty confused when they start looking at historical numbers. So maybe it sounds like a much better solution to have our department heads correlate their expenses from all the lines and put them together in a spreadsheet and make it happen. And maybe we can get some guidance from our new IT people into how easy that might happen.
They should be able
Well,
to,
it seems to me that someone's always going to be asking us the kinds of questions that are related to all the buildings in aggregate. And that's exactly why we got to where we are now. So we just had the sub-reports, as Penny's suggesting, and that gives us the breakout for a department, but at the same time, this large entity of all these government buildings will be in one place also.
And it would be easier, given that report, to look at the annual increases as they happen and look at trend lines, because now you're getting all the pieces from all the little parts of the budget and making them a coherent.
And you know, the IT people are probably able to structure this so that it can pull automatically.
yeah.
at the end of each month.
Yes.
Or it could be done quarterly, and they might be able to pick up the information for the previous year and do a side-by-side comparison.
Okay,
Well, that's certainly a good thought for the future, but as far as what we're dealing right now, we have a motion on the floor. And is there any further discussion on this particular motion? Very well then. Barry?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes,
Helen?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Chair votes aye.
I'm gonna get to vote, I guess. I'll vote.
Did you
yes. No.
I'm sorry, Chip.
Aye.
Thank you, I beg your pardon. And then the one, of course, we're always looking for, which is the last one, which is 4313 Docks and Bridges.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did we get all the permitting that we needed this year?
We did, and we encumbered the money that was left over to continue the permitting process for Lake Road and 19 Mile Pier. And we're going to, depending on which of those projects, or both of those projects, depending on how the next Monday plays out, we're gonna include whatever additional permitting costs in the warrant article. So we're in good shape for what we're doing now. We've left some money in the repair line, if you will, $5,000. Not for any specific purpose, but there's always damage to the different docks around town after the ice goes out. But we are, our intention is to at least get Lake Road down with a bulkhead this year. There's a possibility that we'll do 19 Mile Pier as well. And that would also be a steel bulkhead.
Would that bulkhead, does that include dredging the river at
No.
all?
No,
No.
and the state's reluctant to give us a dredging permit.
Mhm.
The problem that I have with the state of New Hampshire with regard to our docks is that we currently have one individual who has the ability to say yes or no. And if he says no, nothing happens. And from my standpoint, having been married to a judge forever and ever and looking at the legal system, we have to have recourse. We have to have an ability to appeal that person's decision. And currently, that system's broken. So if we want, because we want to do a more extensive repair to 19 Mile Pier than that person would like us to do. So he won't even bring that project forward because it's not something he thinks we should be able to do. It shouldn't be in the purview of one individual to make those kind of decisions.
Yeah.
So I think that battle's gonna happen this year. And maybe that's where I'm leaving the numbers up a little bit.
Yeah, Chip, on the 19 Mile Pier, are we, or is the panel giving consideration to making the side of that pier more user-friendly to the boaters that want to visit the store?
Yeah, the design, and we'll bring that forward when we bring a warrant article forward, is to put steel bulkhead along both sides of the current pier, which will eliminate the 18-inch gap or whatever it is between your boat and solid ground, and also give tying up and walking along next to the boats that are docked there a lot easier because there'll be a wooden walkway on the top of it. So yeah, we have addressed accessibility at the pier. The other thing that we wanted to address was the western side of the pier, being able to dredge that out a little bit so that we can get some more boat traffic on that side of the pier without people running aground. But we're running.
Another question I have is, with respect to the 19-mile pier and the, I guess even Lake Road, it strikes me that those structures have been in place for a period of time going back maybe even further than the current purview of the DES. And I'm wondering if we ought to think about, is there any type of grandfathering equity position that we can develop to perhaps make the current DES a little more give and take cooperative, given that we only have one individual there that...
Well, the problem, Gary, is that you're correct. The state of New Hampshire didn't own the bottom of the lake until the 1950s. And there was a process in place during the early 1960s where piers like the one at 19 Mile Bay, which had been there since the mid-1800s or earlier, were given a grant in right, meaning that the town owned the bottom of the lake bed underneath the pier. Unfortunately, that grant and right process didn't happen for 19 Mile Pier for whatever reason. And so now the only way to establish a grant and right in that instance is to go before the governor and council. But the only way, and this is the Byzantium that we live in, the only way to get to the governor and council is through DES and through Rainey Pelletier, who's the chairman of DES. And if he's not willing to bring that forward, then we don't get to even go to the governor and council according to the current rules as they're read by DES, which is not unlike the, you can't prosecute a city president, which is just a rule that was drawn up in '73. So we're in a situation where the only way we're going to get to the governor and council to get a grant and right is to go through probably the Supreme Court.
How do you?
Well, I'm not saying that we ought to spend a lot of money on this and drive ourselves crazy, but certainly that issue needs to be prominently part of the discussions we have with public here, because it seems to me that you just can't say it's an oversight that we didn't get that grant. I think it's implied that we have it.
Well, as do I, Gary, but unfortunately, you and I don't have the power of an opinion, so.
That's a question for another time, another place.
And I think ultimately, I mean, from my perspective, having lived here my whole life, I feel a certain responsibility to clean up problems that I find. So it's a problem that if we can afford it, I intend to clean up before I leave planet Earth.
Okay then, well,
I move that we approve the budget for 4313, other highways and streets, in the amount of $5,000.
I'll second that.
further discussion on that one? Very well. Barry? Gary?
Yeah.
Chip?
Aye.
Penny?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. And that deals with all of our line items. Okay, thank you. So,
Chip, is Mary the one person you have to go through?
And the problem, I mean, I know we're on camera, I don't know whether we're on camera or not, but I stood there with Mike Cryans on the dock last year, and we shook hands on a deal, and all of a sudden, you know, we don't have a deal anymore. And from my estimation, that's not the way you do business.
you can always ban it from the hardware store. I'm sorry, that's not.
I want to go right in the guys.
Well, hopefully it's not long, not too long.
Okay.
past the time.
Okay, moving on then. I have no correspondence this evening, so we're going to go to the Board of Selectmen's update.
I don't get it. Great.
This is, we're down now to the warrant articles.
Right. And we were just informed on Monday as to our options vis-à-vis town meeting. And I think we established that what our intent, and I'll back up a little bit. Until that happened, we were really unwilling to start talking about big warrant articles in detail, because if we were forced into a situation where there were only 50 people at the meeting, we didn't feel that it was appropriate to bring a building project like the police department or whatever to a meeting with that few people. So we have been, as of Monday, given the opportunity to call the meeting to order on town meeting day and then adjourn it to a postponed date in May, and then have the meeting, or June, or whenever we decide, and then have the meeting outside.
So when you call in the meeting, the first session of the meeting, of course, voting is local voting day, correct? So you would hold the
Voting
voting
would
day.
happen. Right.
But then the quote-unquote business of town meeting would be postponed until May or June?
We had the option of being a quasi, type 2 town. But even then, I don't think, we couldn't agree that our residents were familiar enough with that process to be able to vote the warrant articles on the ballot and have no discussion other than a Zoom meeting, which once again, you've eliminated a certain portion of your population because they're not going to participate in the Zoom meeting, or maybe they can't participate because they don't have the technology. So there was too many pushes against that way of doing it. And we really do want to have a public debate about whatever it is we're doing. So the long and the short of it is, our intention is to bring forward the Lake Road, the SCBA, which is we're gonna finally purchase that this year, I think. I'm not, how much money was involved there?
About
All-
$30,000.
Yeah, I think all total it was just over, it was like 230.
Yeah, but I'm thinking how much additional money.
Oh, additional, it was right around
About 28.
$27,000.
So you got $27,000 there. The Lake Road looks like it's gonna be somewhere in the $150,000. Depending on, and Monday's meeting is gonna determine this, if we're gonna do a police station, we're not gonna do a police cruiser. If we're not gonna do a police station construction this year, then we're looking at probably somewhere around $300,000 in the capital reserve and an additional $40,000 for a police cruiser, because we've got one that's 7 years old. Nothing major at the transfer station, nothing at the highway department. We've got the paving schedule, which is set at around $350,000. And we're talking now about guardrails and other improvements that might be included in that. But all together, if you take the police station out of the mix, altogether we're well under the $968,000 that we had last year for warrant articles. If we bring the police station forward, my goal, and I haven't talked to Lloyd or Bill about it, would be to try to stay within that $968,000 figure by using undesignated fund balance as well as warrant article money. So we're all aware. I mean, the first thing and the last thing on Monday's meeting was, when are we going to get the warrant articles done? So we're all aware of the need to be proactive.
But the operative situation is that the money line items for the budget and this budget as well as warrant articles would not be voted on in March. They'll be voted on in May or June.
Right,
Okay.
right. The business meeting would be, and you know, I was thinking on my way in here that that's not unlike having a special town meeting, which you can call at any point in time. And you can call a special town meeting because you have special needs. So I'm gonna do a little exploration about whether or not we can change the warrant with notice, obviously, before the actual business meeting of the town. So that if come May, something changes, like we get a $500,000 grant from someplace for the police station, that we can alter the warrant as it was presented in March.
But any warrant article can be amended from the floor.
Yeah, but I'm a fan of notice, so.
Oh, no, I agree with you. And I should know it.
Chip, today at the governor's press conference concerning timetable for vaccination, apparently there's an age group of 75 and over, and then it goes from 75 down to 64, and then from 64 to 55. That bracket of 64 to 55 is scheduled to be completed sometime in June. So, you know, May should be a little too early.
Well, I know that, and I'm certainly not as facile with the COVID vaccination figures as you might be, but we're going to continue to have meetings with the town moderator and the town clerk. We've decided that this is the process we're going to go through. We didn't set a date for the actual business meeting. So that discussion's ongoing, and you're certainly welcome to participate.
Well, even if it was a May or a June, I still don't imagine you were considering having an inside the building meeting.
No.
It's going to be an
Oh,
outside
no,
meeting.
that's not what I'm implying at all. I just, and I'm not saying that we definitely have to make a decision now, that it's going to be late. I'm just saying that I think that as time moves along, we may find a May target being a little less achievable. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the only drop dead date that I can see is September 1st. The reason being that at some point in time, you have to set the taxes, which is October, and you have to have the numbers. It just has to, you have to do the accounting. So, but I'm sure that we'll have the meeting. And actually, I think by having it, we've also talked about having it on Saturday morning. You know, try to get as much participation as we can. You know, Tuesday night in the middle of March is not the best time for a lot of people. And especially if we bring forward a police station or something like that.
Any big dollar item.
I'm sorry?
Any big dollar item like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, do we have to petition the state to do this, or is it?
No, we just have to notify it. No, actually, I don't even know that we have to notify them. They delineated the process that you have to use. And if we start exercising that process, that's what we're doing.
Okay, good. Good.
Speaking of which, you talked to the town office today about notification of, or advertising of a public hearing on the budget.
Yes,
So, that's just,
because we are, well, as I say, we have our meeting on the 19th, which we will now be discussing the warrant articles, and then on the 5th of February, we will have our scheduled bond hearing. I don't know how we're going to, it would be nice to be able to have a situation where people could be able to look in on real time on that, because we've never had a huge crowd for bond hearings, but we've always had some people come to the meeting.
well, I'll talk to our computer people to see if we can get this log me in thing running and working for this situation.
Okay.
And then having the ability to field phone calls for input.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are limited on the number of people that you can have in here and have any kind of social distance.
Well, I was doing a little, before everybody came tonight, I was doing a little mental laying out, and I figured that comfortably, if if we got a little bit closer, we might be able to put another 10 to 15 people in here and still maintain some kind of distancing, but that's hardly enough to a legitimate hearing, in my opinion, so.
And we still need to, so we've got warrant articles and we've got revenue. And you think one meeting's gonna be enough for that?
Well, it depends on how many warrant articles you're gonna bring forward. I
Okay.
mean, most of the warrant articles, we already know are gonna be coming forward, and they're, you know,
Right.
the police cruiser, that's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
The only thing that's gonna be a kind of question that might have further debate would be the police station.
Okay.
And it's not, and I think that's just gonna come down once again to, you know, financing issues and things like that. But-
Right, and the other part of that discussion is that we don't have the final numbers from the construction management company yet.
Mhm.
So we need to, until, we can't bring the warrant article forward until we know what it's gonna cost. And depending on how that plays out, that could throw a year's worth of wrench in the bargain as well.
Certainly.
So,
Wouldn't be the end of the world just to defer it for a year.
no, it's not the end of the world. But you know is probably better than anybody here that the cost of construction is just skyrocketing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in the current situation, I mean, that's kind of a concern that's taken second seat to the current situation,
Yeah.
which is, who knows where the end of that is. When it's coming, they say, but it could go bad too, you know, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
So-
But in that eventuality, as I said, I think we'd still be looking at putting 200,000 or 300,000 bucks away. And if that were to happen, we might want to consider starting a reserve for the fire engine, which is something that we've put off for years and years and years. But it's, I mean,
I'm sorry, starting a reserve for what?
the next fire, for the fire
Oh,
engine
yes, yes,
replacement.
yeah.
I mean, we've never done that, but I think CIP would like us to do it. I think it's a great idea. It's worked with the SCBA stuff.
Right, the one thing that I would be careful about this year is that also we have the portable radios that we're putting a warrant article in. But we're trying to get the grant for that, to take care of that part of the thing. But otherwise, that's 100,000 plus.
Yeah, and that's ongoing. We have a grant writer now. Hopefully she's helping you out.
We were totally different. We couldn't, the grant person in your particular case wasn't up on,
What
you know, the fire side of the grants and stuff like that. But we were able to get a grant writer that does it all the time.
So everything's a moving target. I mean, we're still working grants on the police department. So the warrant might be,
I just want to, I'm sorry to, hop in here, but there are grants available for police vehicles.
right.
You know, from perhaps that person, if you're familiar with them, you know, that might be something so we don't have to utilize so much cash of our own.
Right, we're gonna, I mean, all of those opportunities are being put forward to her. And when we qualify, we're certainly, you know, going forward as much as we can to try to secure those grants. But this is sort of a new process for us as well. We, in the past, have relied on Chief Shigori and Chief Thompson to write grants. And as handsome and good a firefighter as he is, he's not a grant writer. And if he is a grant writer, he shouldn't be a fire chief because he can make
Well, I would agree with you, you know?
So I think it's a new process that's getting really up to speed. And I think even though the warrant might end up looking like $900,000, if we can offset $500,000 of that, taxes will go down. So that's our goal.
Okay. Okay then. That's it for Chip. Helen, CIP, You're old news.
CIP
You're old news.
concluded their work this year and did their report on December 1st. So I have nothing to report, and I don't see a reason
I was
to
gonna
be
call you.
included on the agenda.
Well, we'll take that off next time,
Thank you.
okay? I hate to say old news, but.
You're old.
But we all,
Okay, our next meeting date is scheduled for the 19th. Tuesday, we've already discussed what we're going to be talking about. Is there any public input at the end of the meeting this evening? None forthcoming, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
Second.
Second. Barry.
Aye.
Chip. Gary.
Yes.
Penny.
Hi.
Hi. Helen.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Enjoy the rest of the week.